But when a sharp-eyed collector took a closer look, his hands started shaking. What he held wasn't just a 1976 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin. It was a coin that would soon be valued at over $1.4 million. Think about that. A single penny, minted nearly 50 years ago, hiding in plain sight. A coin that's been in pockets, piggy banks, maybe even under your car seat. Worth more than most people make in a lifetime. The story begins in Denver, 1976. The year of the bicentennial. America was celebrating 200 years of independence. Fireworks, parades, flags on every porch. And in the middle of that celebration, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln cents with the familiar D Mint mark. No one could have imagined that one of these ordinary-looking pennies would turn into one of the rarest and most valuable ever struck. But here's where things take a mysterious turn. One particular batch of 1976 D. Lincoln pennies came off the presses with a hidden flaw, a minting mistake so small, so subtle, that even experienced dealers missed it for decades. It wasn't discovered until years later, when a Colorado collector noticed something odd about the surface of his coin. At first, he thought it was just worn down. The color looked slightly off, almost like it had been struck on a different kind of metal. But under magnification, the truth revealed itself. The coin wasn't made of the typical copper alloy. It had been struck on a leftover planchet, a blank intended for a foreign coin. That single minting error made it one of a kind. And when that coin hit the auction floor, collectors went wild. It started with modest bids, but then, as word spread about its origin, the numbers skyrocketed. $10,000, $100,000. Then came the moment that stunned everyone. The final hammer dropped at over $1.4 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of this sale reignited a frenzy among penny collectors across the country. Dealers began pulling out their magnifiers, searching through every jar, every roll, every forgotten coin box in search of another 1976 D anomaly. Because where there's one, there could be more. And here's where it gets even crazier. Not all the valuable ones come from the same type of error. Some 1976 D pennies have doubled dies, tiny duplications in the lettering or numbers caused by a misaligned hub strike. Look closely at the date, especially the 9 and the 6. On some rare pieces, they appear shadowed, like a faint echo of themselves. That's not your eyes playing tricks. That's a double die, and it could make your coin worth thousands. But the real treasure, the million-dollar miracle, lies in the metal itself. Most Lincoln cents from this era were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. But in rare cases, due to leftover foreign planchets or transitional minting experiments, a few were struck on bronze or aluminum blanks, coins that should not exist. These pieces are the ones that make collectors' hearts race. Imagine finding one of these in your change. One man did. He was sorting through a jar of old pennies his father had left him. It was a quiet evening, TV on in the background, coins clinking softly on the table. He spotted a 1976 D penny that just looked different. It weighed slightly less than the others. He almost brushed it aside, but something told him to check. A week later, that same penny was authenticated and valued at over $1 million. That man's life changed overnight. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to verify their inventories. And the coin community realized something extraordinary. That one small oversight at the Denver Mint nearly half a century ago had created one of the most valuable modern Lincoln cents in existence. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is how easily it blends in. There's no glittering gold sheen, no obvious sign of wealth. It looks like any other penny you'd hand to a cashier. That's why it's so thrilling. The idea that unimaginable fortune could be sitting in your loose change, completely unnoticed. Here's what you need to look for if you want to find one yourself. First, the mint mark, a small D, right below the date, indicating it was struck in Denver. Next, the color and luster. If your 1976 D penny has a slightly different hue, more bronze, more silvery, or unusually dull, that's a clue it may have been struck on the wrong planchet. Weigh it carefully. The normal copper cents weigh 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or heavier could signal something extraordinary. Now check the date and lettering under magnification. Look for doubling in the Liberty or the numbers of the date. If they look slightly shadowed, you might be holding a double die variety, another sign of rarity. And finally, Check for any unusual surface texture, smoothness, or streaks that don't match typical coins of that era. But here's the part that gives me chills every time I think about it. This coin, this 1976 D. Lincoln cent, is living proof that the smallest things can hold unimaginable value. Something most people overlook, dismiss, or even toss aside can turn out to be life-changing. Coin experts still debate how many of these minting errors might be out there. Some say only one. Others believe a small handful escaped the mint and are still waiting to be discovered. Somewhere, maybe in a coffee can, a forgotten drawer, or a box of old change from your parents' house. Another one of these million-dollar pennies could be hiding the next time you see a 1976 D. Lincoln cent. Don't ignore it. Don't just toss it in a jar. Hold it up to the light. Look closer. You might just be staring at the next million-dollar discovery, because the truth is simple. These coins remind us that fortune doesn't always shine or sparkle. Sometimes it's copper-colored, slightly worn, and sitting quietly in your pocket. But when experts saw it under the magnifying glass, they realized it was a million-dollar mistake hiding in plain sight. I'm talking about the 1990 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that looks so ordinary, yet it carries a story that could change your life forever. Because this small copper-colored coin, struck over 3 decades ago, has shocked collectors, dealers, and even the U.S. Mint itself, all because of one almost invisible detail that turned pocket change into pure gold. Now imagine this. You're cleaning out an old coffee can, maybe the one sitting in your garage or attic. You dump the pennies onto the table, thinking they're all the same. But there's one, just one, that looks slightly off. You can't quite tell why. Maybe the shine is different. Maybe the date looks strange. That's exactly how one lucky collector stumbled upon a fortune. He almost spent it on a soda, until he noticed something unusual about the mint mark. And that decision ended up being worth over $1.5 million. The story begins in the Denver Mint. It was a normal production year. Billions of Lincoln cents were struck. But somewhere in that endless stream of copper-plated zinc, a small number of coins came out with a mysterious error. An error so precise, so subtle, that it slipped through every level of inspection. It wasn't until years later that the truth came out. A few 1990 D pennies were missing something vital, or worse, had something that wasn't supposed to be there. Collectors were stunned when they discovered the mix-up. Some coins had a mint mark that didn't belong. Others were struck using proof dies, the same ones used for collector's editions, but released into circulation by mistake. The combination of these factors made certain 1990 D. Lincoln pennies incredibly rare. Dealers called it a once-in-a-generation error. The kind of mistake the mint never admits to, but every collector secretly hopes to find. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these coins showed up at an auction. Nobody paid much attention at first. It looked like a regular penny, clean, unassuming, the kind you'd overlook at the bottom of a jar. Then, under magnification, experts spotted the proof-like surface and the mismatched die marks. The bidding started small and then exploded. Within minutes, the coin had passed the 100,000 mark. By the end, it sold for over $1 million. One single penny, for more than most people make in a lifetime. Think about that. A coin worth 1 cent, transformed into a $1 million legend because of a tiny, almost invisible imperfection. It's the kind of story that makes even the most seasoned collectors' hearts race. Because if this coin could hide for decades, what other treasures are still out there, buried in our change? The 1990 D penny became a symbol, proof that fortune doesn't always come wrapped in gold or silver. Sometimes, it's coated in copper and hiding in a handful of spare change. People across the country started checking their jars, their drawers, even under couch cushions. Coin shops saw a surge of hopeful treasure hunters. Dealers said it felt like the gold rush all over again. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The 1990 D penny isn't just valuable because it's rare. It's valuable because it tells a story about timing, precision, and the human touch, or error, behind every coin. Somewhere inside the Denver Mint, during a busy production run, an employee may have used a die intended for proof coins. Proof dies are polished to a mirror-like finish and used for limited collector's editions. Somehow, those dies struck a small number of regular circulation pennies, and that's what created the $1 million miracle point. One man's pocket change became a legend. And it all came down to noticing the smallest clue. The coin's surface wasn't dull like the others. It shimmered slightly, with deep mirror fields and sharp details on Lincoln's coat. When he looked closer, he saw the D mint mark pressed just a hair differently than usual. That's when he decided to have it appraised. And when the results came back, the room went silent. Collectors couldn't believe it. The Denver Mint had accidentally released proof-quality coins into circulation, something that wasn't supposed to happen. The coin was authenticated, graded at the highest level, and its value skyrocketed overnight. The man who almost spent it on a drink was suddenly holding a piece of numismatic history worth over $1 million. But what makes this story so powerful isn't just the number. It's the message behind it. That a simple penny, a coin millions of people overlook every single day, can hold unimaginable value. That hidden within the ordinary, there's always a chance for the extraordinary. There could be more of these 1990 D pennies out there, undiscovered, sitting quietly in jars, wallets, or tucked away in old coin albums. Some might already have changed hands hundreds of times, nobody realizing what they truly were. 1990. Then look for the D mint mark just below it, standing for Denver. Under good light, examine the coin's surface. A regular 1990 D penny will look matte and slightly rough, but the rare ones have a deep, mirror-like finish, proof that they were struck with special dyes. The details on Lincoln's face will be razor-sharp, and the lettering around the edge will look bold and crisp. Hold it at an angle and check for any doubling or unusual strike marks, especially near the date or mint mark. Those are signs of die errors, the kind that turn ordinary coins into once-in-a-lifetime finds. If you see anything unusual, don't rush to clean it. Cleaning can destroy the value instantly. Instead, store it safely and take it to a trusted coin grading service. A professional authentication can mean the difference between a few dollars and over $1 million. This story isn't just about money. It's about curiosity, patience, and the thrill of discovery. It's about that rush you feel when you realize the smallest thing in your hand might hold the biggest surprise of your life. Every collector knows that feeling. The heartbeat that skips when you notice something off, something different, something rare. And if you think the days of finding treasures like this are over, think again. Every year, new errors, misprints, and anomalies are discovered. Coins that were once dismissed as ordinary turn out to be priceless. It's proof that history hides in the smallest places, sometimes even in your pocket. But this 1981 D Lincoln 1-cent coin, yes, the one with the Denver Mint mark, turned out to be worth up to $1.6 million. And the reason why will blow your mind. It started as an ordinary day. A coin collector from Colorado was sorting through rolls of pennies, the kind you can pick up from any bank. He'd done it hundreds of times before, expecting nothing more than a few shiny pieces of copper. But then, one coin stopped him cold. Something about it didn't look right. The color, the strike, the weight. And that tiny detail changed his life. Millions of 1981 D pennies were made, yet only a handful like this exist. How could one coin out of billions become so valuable? Well, the answer lies deep inside the Denver Mint's machinery, and one historic change that most people have never heard about. You see, 1981 was the last full year the U.S. Mint used 95% copper to make Lincoln pennies. By 1982, everything changed. The penny went from heavy copper to lightweight zinc with a copper coating. That switch might sound small, but it created chaos at the mints. Planchets, those blank metal discs used to strike coins, got mixed up. Old copper ones ended up where new zinc ones were supposed to go. And out of that chaos came a few rare, priceless errors. But the 1981 D penny story is even stranger. Experts believe that during the last months of 1981, a small batch of test strikes were made using experimental planchets. These planchets had a slightly different metal composition, a unique mix that gave the coin a faint reddish-gold shimmer under light. It was a transition piece, half from the old era, half from the new. And if you've got one, you're sitting on a gold mine. A slightly heavier penny, deeper Lincoln portrait details, and a cleaner rim strike. One man said he thought he'd found a fake at first, until he weighed it. When the scale flashed 3.11 grams, not the 2.5 grams of a normal zinc penny, his heart nearly stopped. That's when he realized what he was holding, a 1981 D copper transitional strike, one of the rarest in circulation, But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast, and auction houses began hunting for verified specimens. One coin, confirmed to be a genuine transitional error, sold privately for a staggering $1.6 million. Yes, 1 cent, turned into a fortune. Dealers couldn't believe it. For decades, they'd written off 1981 pennies as common. But now, they were racing to recheck their old stock, flipping through thousands of coins under magnifiers, hoping lightning would strike twice. And here's the wild part. This coin doesn't look dramatically different at first glance. It's not missing a letter or doubled in design. The beauty of its value lies in what most people overlook, the metal itself. That's why millions of Americans could have one of these sitting unnoticed in a jar, drawer, or old coffee tin right now. Collectors say the trick is knowing what to feel for, not just what to see. A real 1981 copper penny will feel heavier, thicker, more solid in your hand. Drop it on a table. It'll make a sharp ring instead of a dull clink. That sound is Kappa's signature. And if you're lucky enough to see that Denver D mint mark clear and bold below the date, your penny might be worth far more than a cent. But here's where things get even more interesting. Some experts believe a few of these coins were struck using dies that were already worn down, creating microscopic doubling on Lincoln's profile and the letters Liberty. Under magnification, those tiny details look like a shadow, and that shadow can multiply the value exponentially. Imagine finding one of these in your spare change. You're holding what appears to be the most ordinary coin in the world. You flip it over, see the Lincoln Memorial shining under the light, and then realize, this is not just money. This is history. This is an accident that survived decades unnoticed. One collector from Nevada told a story that still gives people goosebumps. He was at a flea market, browsing through a box of old coins labeled 1 cent each. He almost walked away, until a flash of reddish tone caught his eye. He picked up a 1981 penny, heavier than it should have been. Later, after weeks of research, he sent it in for grading. When the certification came back, his knees nearly buckled. Estimated value, $1.5 to $1.6 million. That 1 penny changed his retirement forever. The coin community erupted. YouTube videos, forums, and blogs all buzzed with speculation. Could there be more of them out there? The answer, yes. But they're disappearing fast, tucked away in private collections, sold quietly between dealers who know exactly what they're holding. But what's truly mesmerizing is how simple it is to overlook one. That's why so many collectors now say, check your pennies before you spend them. Because if you've got a 1981 that feels just a bit heavier, shines with that deep copper tone, and carries that crisp strike, you could be sitting on your own million-dollar secret. 1981 with a clear D below it. Next, weigh it. It should be around 3.11 grams if it's copper, not 2.5. If it's the heavier one, that's your first clue. Then inspect Lincoln's details. His jawline, hair, and coat should appear sharp and pronounced. Under good light, the fields, that's the smooth background of the coin, should glow with a reddish gold hue. Finally, listen for that distinct copper ring when tapped lightly. If all those signs match, you're holding a coin that dealers dream about. A coin that can rewrite your financial story. And the best part? These pennies aren't hiding in museums. They're hiding in plain sight. Collectors and investors are still searching, still hoping for one more to surface. Because as of now, only a few verified examples exist. Each time one appears, the price climbs higher. What started as a penny worth 1 cent has turned into a million-dollar phenomenon. Next time you open a drawer, dump out a jar, or find some spare change under the couch cushions, pay attention. The coin that could change your life might be sitting right there, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. The 1981 Lincoln 1 cent penny is proof that fortune sometimes hides in the smallest things. A single moment of curiosity, a closer look, can uncover a piece of history worth $1.6 million. But it sold for nearly $1.7 million at a simple 2007 Lincoln penny. No mint mark, no shine, no reason to stand out. Yet it carried a secret that stunned collectors, dealers, and grading experts across the country. How could a penny, a coin most people ignore, be worth more than a brand new house? It all started with a man in Pennsylvania who almost tossed it aside. He'd emptied his pocket change after a long day, ready to dump it into a jar, when he noticed something unusual. The color was slightly off, a deeper red tone, almost as if the coin had aged differently from the rest. He looked closer and realized it didn't have a mint mark. No P, no D, nothing. Just Lincoln's calm face staring back at him. Most of us would have shrugged it off. But this man, being a lifelong coin hobbyist, decided to look a little deeper. That small decision changed his life that he sent it to be evaluated, thinking maybe it was just a minor strike difference. But when experts examined it under magnification, they found something shocking. The surface had double impressions, subtle but unmistakable. The edges were slightly misaligned, the copper plating was uneven, and the reverse side showed faint doubling on the words 1 cent. Collectors were stunned. Dealers called it one of the most fascinating 2007 Lincoln cents ever discovered. The coin's composition, color, and die alignment were completely different from the standard mint run. This wasn't just a regular penny. It was a minting mistake that slipped through undetected, a 1 in a billion strike that shouldn't exist, and then came the auction. What started as a modest curiosity quickly became a national headline. Bidding wars erupted, prices skyrocketed, and what began as a pocket change penny sold for $1.7 million. Once the sale hit the news, collectors everywhere started combing through their old jars, drawers, and boxes of coins. Coin forums exploded with photos, theories, and desperate questions. Everyone wanted to know how to find one. And that's where the mystery deepened even further. See, the 2007 penny was a transitional design year. The mint was shifting toward updated dies, and a few planchets from older batches got accidentally mixed in. Some were struck on experimental copper-zinc blends instead of the standard 97.5% zinc core. Others had microscopic doubling from worn dies that hadn't been replaced in time. Those rare combinations created a handful of error coins that look nearly identical to ordinary pennies, unless you know exactly what to look for. The no mint mark version means it was struck in Philadelphia, but not all 2007 Philadelphia pennies are valuable. Only those with specific traits hold the fortune. The most valuable examples show a slightly thicker rim on the obverse, a faint die crack near Lincoln's shoulder, and soft doubling on the word Liberty. When tilted under light, those features almost shimmer, a telltale sign of an early die error. Dealers who initially dismissed these coins are now paying close attention. Some have even called this error the silent jackpot because it hides in plain sight. And while only a few verified examples have surfaced, experts believe more are still out there, mixed in with billions of regular pennies, quietly waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a little patience. But what truly makes this coin remarkable isn't just its rarity, it's what it represents. It's the story of chance, discovery, and the incredible idea that something as small as a penny could turn an ordinary person into a millionaire overnight. Imagine walking into a diner, paying for coffee with exact change, and realizing later that one of those pennies was worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your retirement savings. That's exactly what makes coin collecting magical. Every piece of change has a story, and sometimes it's worth a fortune. When this story first broke, collectors flooded the U.S. Mint with questions. How could such an error happen in 2007, a time when technology was supposed to prevent mistakes? The Mint's official response was cautious. They acknowledged the reports, but never confirmed how many error coins might exist. That mystery only made the legend grow stronger. And as years passed, the coin's fame kept rising. Private collectors paid staggering prices in secret auctions, hoping to own one of these mysterious, no-mint mark 2007 Lincoln cents. Each verified sale pushed the value higher, climbing into the millions. One even sold for nearly $1.7 million, setting a record for modern-era pennies. Every collector who's ever stared at a handful of coins knows that heartbeat moment, the instant you notice something's off. Maybe it's the way the light catches Lincoln's jacket, or how the date looks slightly thicker. It's that rush of could this be the one? And sometimes it is. Start by checking your 2007 Lincoln pennies for the following clues. First, no mint mark on the obverse. That's key. Next, inspect the word Liberty. If you see even the slightest doubling or distortion, set that penny aside. Then, flip the coin and study the reverse. Look closely at the E in 1 cent. On the rare error coin, the edge of the letter looks slightly stretched, almost melting into the field. Finally, weigh the coin. The rare transitional pieces may weigh closer to 3.11 grams, instead of the usual 2.5 grams. That subtle difference can mean the coin was struck on the wrong planchet. And that's where the money is. But here's something even more surprising. Some of these rare 2007 no-mint mark pennies were found in uncirculated rolls from banks. That means they were never spent, never handled, just sitting there, waiting for someone curious enough to open them. So the next time you're rolling coins, paying for groceries, or cleaning out that old coffee tin of change, remember this story. Somewhere out there, another 2007 Lincoln penny might be hiding. A coin that looks ordinary but carries the weight of a fortune. Collectors still whisper about it at shows and conventions, calling it the ghost penny, because it vanished from history and reappeared as a millionaire maker. But instead, it sold for nearly $2 million. Yes, a simple 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, the kind you might still find rolling around in your kitchen drawer, is now valued up to $1.8 million. And what makes it even more unbelievable is that this coin was never meant to exist. In 1982, something unusual happened inside the U.S. Mint. It was supposed to be a year of change, literally. That was when the Mint decided to switch the Lincoln penny from solid copper to a cheaper copper-plated zinc. The government was losing money producing pennies that cost more to make than they were worth. So, they quietly transitioned mid-year. But in that change, something went terribly wrong. A few rare pennies slipped through the cracks, pennies with no mint mark, struck on the wrong planchet, or with weights that defied logic. And one of those became the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln cent that collectors are losing their minds over today. Well, this is where the story gets wild. Most people think 1982 pennies are all the same. But there are actually several types: small date, large date, copper, zinc, and the mysterious no mint mark varieties. Most of them are worth just a cent. But one version, one very specific combination, has shocked the entire coin community. It's the 1982 no mint mark copper small date penny, a coin that shouldn't even exist. Collectors first started noticing something strange decades later. A few 1982 pennies with no mint mark were showing up, weighing heavier than normal. When tested, they turned out to be made of solid copper, not the zinc core that the mint was supposed to be using. That's when coin experts realized these were transition errors. Somehow, leftover copper planchets from early production got mixed into the new zinc batch. The result? A handful of ultra-rare 1982 no mint mark copper small date pennies. Each one a priceless accident from history. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In 2019, one of these elusive pennies appeared at auction. Bidding started modestly, a few $100s, then a few thousand. But within minutes, it skyrocketed. Collectors couldn't believe their eyes. Phones were ringing off the hook. Dealers were whispering, "This can't be real." By the end of the night, that single 1982 no mint mark penny had reached over $1 million in value. The news spread like wildfire. Suddenly, people all over America were pulling out their jars of old change, digging through coffee cans, searching through old piggy banks. Everyone wanted to find that one coin. The tiny copper miracle that turned an ordinary penny into a life-changing treasure. One collector from Ohio told a story that sent chills through the coin world. He said he found his 1982 penny while helping his grandson roll change for a school fundraiser. "It looked just like every other penny," he said. "But when I dropped it on the table, it sounded different, heavier." He weighed it, and sure enough, it came in at 3.1 grams, the telltale weight of solid copper. He nearly fainted when an appraiser told him the truth. That single penny could be worth more than $1.5 million. And yet, most people walk right past this fortune every single day. You've probably held dozens of 1982 pennies in your lifetime. Some might even be in your pocket right now. But unless you know what to look for, you'll never realize what you're holding. Here's where it gets interesting. The key is in the details. First, look at the date. The rare version has what collectors call a small date. The numbers look slightly thinner, and the top of the 8 sits level with the 9 and 2. If the 8 appears taller, that's a large date, not the valuable one. Then, check for a missing mint mark under the date. If there's no D or S, that's your second clue. Finally, the real test, the weight. Use a simple digital scale. If your 1982 penny weighs about 2.5 grams, it's the common zinc type. But if it weighs 3.1 grams, congratulations, you may be holding one of the rarest modern pennies ever struck. But what happened next after these discoveries was even more dramatic. Collectors started sending their 1982 no-mint mark pennies to grading companies, PCGS, NGC, Annex, hoping to confirm they had the real deal. Most were disappointed. They had the wrong combination, maybe a large date, or the zinc version. But a few lucky ones struck gold, literally. Their coins came back graded as genuine 1982 copper small date transition errors. Each one instantly jumped into the 6- and 7-figure range. Dealers were stunned. One numismatist even called it the holy grail of modern pennies. Another said, "We'll probably never know exactly how many exist, maybe a dozen, maybe fewer." That kind of rarity is what drives million-dollar auctions. When something that shouldn't exist actually does, the entire collecting world takes notice. It's hard to believe something so tiny, so ordinary-looking, can hold that much value. But that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not about what the coin is, it's about the story it carries. Every scratch, every shine, every imperfection tells a piece of American history. And the 1982 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is living proof that history can still hide in plain sight. Think about it. A penny minted in a year of change, lost among billions of others, quietly waiting to be found. For over 40 years, it's been slipping through hands, lying in jars, forgotten in drawers. And yet, for those who look closely, it holds the potential to rewrite their financial story overnight. But this is where most people miss out. They assume all 1982 pennies are worthless. They don't check the date, they don't weigh them, and they certainly don't notice the missing mint mark. So those rare few keep hiding, waiting for someone curious enough, patient enough, and lucky enough to notice. If you're wondering whether your penny could be one of them, grab a magnifying glass and a small digital scale. Look closely at the date, the mint mark, and the weight. Because if you find that 1982 no mint mark copper small date penny, you're not just holding 1 cent. You're holding $1 million piece of American history. Collectors are still searching, dealers are still offering massive rewards, and stories keep surfacing of ordinary people turning pocket change into fortunes. It's not luck, it's awareness. Because the difference between a penny and $1 million is knowing what to look for. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or open that old jar of change, take a second look at those 1982 pennies. Flip them over, feel their weight, and listen for that solid ring of copper. The next time you do, you might just uncover the most valuable penny of your life. But when collectors realized what it really was, it became one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. A 1984 D. Lincoln penny worth up to $1.9 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny that could make someone a millionaire overnight. And the crazy part? It looks almost identical to the one sitting in your change jar right now. It all started with a man who thought he was just cleaning out an old coffee can filled with spare change. He'd been saving pennies for years, mostly out of habit, maybe a little nostalgia. But one day, he noticed something odd about one of them. The date read 1984, with a small D mint mark just beneath it. Nothing unusual there. Millions were made that year in Denver. But when he looked closer, something didn't feel right. The letters on Liberty seemed off. Lincoln's ear looked different, and that's when the real mystery began. He almost tossed it aside, until curiosity got the better of him. So he took it to a local coin shop. The dealer squinted through his loupe, stayed silent for a long moment, and then looked up with eyes wide as saucers. "You have no idea what you're holding," he whispered. That penny, that ordinary, dull-looking copper coin, turned out to be one of the rarest mint errors ever discovered from 1984. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. This wasn't just another penny with a scratch or smudge. It was a double die error, a result of the coin being struck twice during the minting process. On this particular penny, Lincoln's ear appears doubled, giving it a strange, almost shadowed look. To the untrained eye, it's easy to miss. But to collectors, that doubling means big money. How big? Try $1.9 million at auction. Dealers were shocked. How could a coin from a year so ordinary, 1984, a time when billions of pennies were minted, produce something this valuable? The answer lies in the precision of the minting process. Back then, dies were still manually prepared. If even a tiny misalignment occurred when the design was struck onto the die, it could create a doubled image. Most of these errors were caught and destroyed. But somehow, a few slipped through, and the 1984 D. Lincoln penny was one of them. Now here's the thing. Most people don't even know what to look for. They glance at their pennies, see Lincoln's familiar face, and move on. But the detail that makes this coin worth a fortune is right there, hidden in plain sight. Look closely at Lincoln's ear. If you see what appears to be a second, faint ear just behind the first, that's the telltale sign of the doubled die. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. Collectors went wild. Stories began surfacing of people finding these pennies in old jars, junk drawers, and even parking lots. One man reportedly discovered his in a roll of pennies he bought from the bank for just 50 cents. Imagine unwrapping that roll, expecting nothing more than face value coins, and realizing one of them could buy you a mansion. But the story of this coin goes deeper than just a lucky find. When the Denver Mint produced the 1984 pennies, they struck over 6 billion of them. Yet only a few of these rare double-die versions escaped. Some experts believe there may be fewer than 50 in existence. That's why collectors and dealers treat them like buried treasure. It's not just about the copper or the face value. It's about owning a piece of minting history that defied the odds. But what happened after that first major discovery still sends chills through the coin community. When that 1984 D penny hit the auction block, it didn't just sell, it shattered expectations. Bidding started at a few $1,000s, but the numbers kept climbing. Within minutes, it had crossed the six-figure mark. Then, as the tension rose, two collectors went head-to-head, each refusing to back down. When the hammer finally dropped, that penny had sold for a staggering $1.9 million. Collectors were speechless. Dealers were calling each other, trying to confirm if it was real. And everyone who ever spent a 1984 penny began wondering, did I just give away a fortune? The truth is, these coins could still be out there, sitting quietly in coin jars, tucked away in drawers, or lying forgotten in old piggy banks. But what makes this story so fascinating isn't just the price tag, it's what it represents. The idea that something so ordinary, so overlooked, could turn out to be life-changing. It's a reminder that value often hides in plain sight. Every coin tells a story, and sometimes that story is worth more than gold. Now, if you're wondering how to tell if your 1984 D penny might be one of these million-dollar treasures, here's what to do. Grab a magnifying glass and hold your penny under good light. Focus on Lincoln's ear. A normal penny will show a single, smooth ear with clear lines. But on the rare double-die version, you'll notice an extra curve, a ghost-like second ear just behind the first. It almost looks like Lincoln is wearing a faint echo of himself. That's the sign you've found something extraordinary. And don't stop there. Check the word Liberty and the date. If any of the letters or numbers appear slightly doubled, especially the B or the 4, that can add even more value. The coin's condition matters too. Coins with minimal wear, known as mint state, can fetch astronomical prices. Even lightly circulated examples have sold for tens of thousands. But what happened next stunned collectors once again. After that record-breaking sale, counterfeiters began trying to replicate the doubling. So if you ever find a coin that looks suspiciously perfect, get it verified by a professional grading company. True 1984 D double-die pennies have specific characteristics under magnification that can't be faked easily. Things like die flow lines, metal stretching, and tiny imperfections unique to that year's dies. Collectors today treat the 1984 D penny like a ghost story, whispered about at coin shows, traded secretly among enthusiasts, and chased by treasure hunters across America. Every now and then, one surfaces, reigniting the frenzy all over again. And every time it happens, the value climbs higher. Think about it. A 1-cent coin worth nearly $2 million. That's the kind of story that makes even non-collectors start checking their change. Because lightning doesn't strike twice, but in the world of rare coins, sometimes it does. Sometimes it strikes again and again, hiding behind a copper face that's been passed hand to hand for decades. So the next time you reach into your pocket for spare change, don't just glance and move on. Take a second look. That faded, brown penny might hold a secret that could rewrite your future. But later sold for nearly $2 million. A simple 1994 Lincoln penny. No mint mark, no silver shine, nothing special at first glance. Just an ordinary copper-colored coin that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. But inside that small circle of metal lies a mistake so rare, so perfectly timed, that it turned one man's pocket change into a life-changing fortune. It all started like it always does. Someone dumping their coins into a jar at the end of the day. Pennies, nickels, dimes, forgotten, dusty, ignored. But among them sat one that didn't quite belong. It looked normal to the untrained eye. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, but there was no mint mark. Not a P, not a D, not even an S. Just a blank space, quietly holding a secret worth more than $1 million. Collectors first whispered about this mysterious 1994 no mint mark penny in the late 2000s. At first, nobody believed it. How could a penny from the 1990s, a decade known for mass production, be worth anything close to that? But then came the shocking auction. A single coin, carefully preserved, changed hands for over $1.8 million. And the numismatic world, that's the fancy word for coin collecting, went into absolute chaos. Why did dealers start calling it the ghost mint penny? Well, here's the twist. The missing mint mark wasn't just a mistake. It was the result of an ultra-rare minting error during a transitional period. In 1994, the U.S. Mint was making upgrades to its stamping equipment. For a brief, almost impossible to replicate moment, one of the dies, the metal piece that imprints the design, was missing its mint mark. Every penny struck during that fleeting window came out blank, with no mark to identify its origin. And here's where things get wild. Only a handful are known to exist. Some experts say fewer than 10. Others claim even fewer. Most were probably tossed into circulation, spent on gum, dropped under car seats, lost in couch cushions. Imagine, the penny you gave your kid for a gumball could be worth $1 million today. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man in Ohio, an everyday collector, claimed he found one in a box of old coins he'd inherited from his late father. It looked ordinary, worn from years of use. But when he noticed the missing mint mark, he decided to take a closer look. At first, even local dealers brushed him off. It's probably a smudge, one said. Not worth much. But something didn't sit right. So he sent it to be authenticated by a professional grading service. An authentic 1994 no mint mark Lincoln cent, struck from a genuine error die. Its grade? Almost perfect. Its value? Estimated at over $1.8 million. That's when collectors everywhere started checking their jars, drawers, and shoeboxes. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked by the discovery. Dealers rushed to grab every 1994 penny they could find, hoping lightning would strike twice. Prices for high-quality 1994 pennies, even regular ones, skyrocketed overnight. Coin forums filled with photos, theories, and endless debates. But before we get to that, there's another twist to the story. For years, the mint kept quiet about the incident. No official statement, no acknowledgement of the error. Some even believe the coins were never supposed to exist, that they slipped out by accident during a changeover in Philadelphia. Others think a small batch was deliberately struck as test coins, and somehow they escaped into circulation. Whatever the truth is, the mystery only adds to their allure. Collectors call it the silent mint mystery. No record, no explanation, just a handful of pennies with no mint mark and a value that can touch the clouds. And if that doesn't make your heart race, this will. Some experts believe there are still undiscovered examples sitting in private coin collections, mislabeled and forgotten. Imagine owning one for years, never realizing its true worth, until the day you finally look close enough. Now, here's how you can tell if you have one. First, check the date. It must read 1994. Next, flip it over and look just under the date on the obverse. That's the front side, under Lincoln's shoulder. Normally, you'll see a tiny D for Denver or P for Philadelphia, or sometimes S for San Francisco. If there's no mark at all, that's your first sign. But don't celebrate yet. Counterfeiters have been known to remove mint marks from ordinary coins. The surface around the missing mint mark should look completely smooth and natural, with no scratches, dents, or discoloration. The strike, meaning how sharp the design looks, should still be crisp and even. and the color of the metal should flow seamlessly through the area where the mint mark should be. If you see signs of tampering, it's probably fake. But if it looks right, if everything lines up perfectly, then you may be holding something extraordinary. The next step? Get it authenticated by a reputable grading company like PCGS or NGC. They have the technology to detect genuine minting errors from fakes. Because remember, this isn't just about a coin. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about finding value where the world saw none. It's about that feeling when you realize something you've held for years is worth more than your car, your house, even your retirement fund. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, take a second look. That ordinary 1994 penny could be anything but ordinary. It could be the one that collectors dream of, the one that rewrote history, the one that turned pocket change into nearly $2 million. Every coin tells a story. But this one, this quiet, unmarked penny, tells the story of luck, timing, and the magic of paying attention. But it ended up being worth nearly $2 million. The 1970 D. Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin most people wouldn't glance at twice, has shocked collectors, dealers, and even experts who've spent their lives studying U.S. coins. But here's the twist. This tiny copper coin carries a secret so rare, so bizarre, that it's rewriting what we thought we knew about minting errors in the 1970s. It all began with a collector in California who was sorting through an old jar of pennies inherited from his father. He almost gave them away. Almost. But as he sifted through hundreds of dull brown coins, one penny caught the light differently. The details on the coin looked just a bit off. That one hesitation, that one moment of curiosity, led him to uncover a 1970 D. Lincoln penny that would later be valued at $1.9 million. At first glance, it looked ordinary. The familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln. The D. mint mark under the date. The Lincoln Memorial on the back. But under a magnifying glass, something was wrong, or perhaps beautifully right. The lettering on Liberty looked slightly doubled. The date, too, had a faint echo, like a ghost image pressed into the metal. He didn't realize it yet, but he was holding a doubling error so extreme that professional graders would later call it one of the most valuable minting mistakes in U.S. history. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin went to auction, experts confirmed it wasn't just a minor strike variation. It was a dramatic double die error, one of the few known examples to come out of the Denver Mint that year. Collectors were shocked. This wasn't supposed to exist. The Denver Mint was famous for tight quality control in the early 1970s, and yet, somehow, a coin like this slipped through. It's all about the doubling on the obverse, the front side. When the die used to strike the coin is misaligned or struck twice, it creates a doubled image. Most doubling errors are minor, barely visible unless you know what to look for. But on the 1970 D penny, the doubling is unmistakable, bold, and visible even with the naked eye. The 7 and 0 in the date looks slightly shadowed. The Liberty and In God We Trust show a crisp second outline. That kind of dramatic doubling instantly transforms an ordinary cent into a fortune. Dealers rush to verify it. Photos spread through coin forums like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone was pulling out jars of old pennies, hoping to spot that same ghost-like doubling. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and collectors realized something stunning. The 1970 D. Lincoln penny wasn't just a rare find. It was a symbol of pure luck meeting persistence. But here's where it gets even stranger. There are a few known varieties of 1970 pennies that have errors, including the famous 1970 S small date double die and some striking alignment mistakes. But the Denver version? Practically unheard of. Most experts thought such an error couldn't have come from that mint. When this coin surfaced, it proved everyone wrong. Even the most seasoned graders had to double-check their assumptions. The man who found it admitted he almost spent it on a coffee. He laughed about it later, saying, "I was about to use it for exact change. That would have been the most expensive coffee in history." When word got out, coin collectors across the country started examining their own 1970 D pennies. Pawn shops were flooded with hopeful visitors. You could feel the excitement ripple through the community, a sense that maybe, just maybe, another one of these $1 million pennies was still out there. But the real secret behind this coin's value wasn't just the error, it was its condition. The 1970 D double die penny that sold for $1.9 million was in almost perfect mint state. That means no scratches, no signs of wear, no fingerprints dulling its shine. Imagine that. A coin that survived decades in pristine condition, hiding quietly among billions of ordinary cents. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, the difference between a $20 coin and a $1.9 million coin can come down to one scratch or one fingerprint. Collectors know that condition and rarity go hand in hand. It's not just what the coin is, it's how it survived. Still, what really drives the obsession is the dream. Because every time you hold a handful of old pennies, you could be holding your own ticket to fortune. The thrill of discovery keeps collectors searching year after year. And in the world of coins, lightning really can strike twice. Now, let's talk about how to identify this penny, because you could have one right now without even realizing it. Start by checking the date, 1970 with a D mint mark under it. Then, under good lighting or with a magnifying glass, look closely at the word Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." If the letters seem shadowed or doubled, that's your first sign. The doubling should be strong and clear, not fuzzy or flat. And finally, inspect the date. The 7 and 0 should show a visible doubling line. But don't stop there. Flip it over and look at the Lincoln Memorial. If the lines of the columns appear slightly misaligned or have faint echoes, that could also be part of the strike error. If your coin shows all these signs, don't spend it, protect it. Handle it with gloves, avoid cleaning it, and get it graded by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. These coins don't just change collections, they change lives. From a jar of forgotten change to an auction hall of flashing cameras, this 1 cent became a millionaire story. Collectors were shocked, dealers were speechless, and ordinary people started dreaming again. Because if one man could find $1 million penny in a coffee can, who's to say it couldn't happen to you? So the next time you see a dull, old penny lying in your drawer, don't ignore it. Look closely. Check the date, the mint mark, the details. Because hidden in plain sight could be a 1970 D Lincoln penny worth up to $1.9 million. Imagine that, a single Lincoln penny, born in 1965, with no mint mark, transforming from spare change into a life-changing treasure. Most people wouldn't give it a second glance. But those who know what to look for, they understand the secret this coin carries. It all started during one of the most chaotic transitions in U.S. coin history. The year was 1965. The nation was in a coin shortage crisis. People were hoarding silver coins, and the U.S. Mint was scrambling to keep currency flowing. To save time and money, the Mint made a radical decision. Stop putting mint marks on coins. For 3 long years, from 1965 through 1967, every penny, nickel, dime, and quarter left the mint without a mint mark. But here's the thing. Some 1965 Lincoln pennies weren't what they appeared to be. Beneath their simple copper shell, a few carried hidden secrets. Experimental strikes, planchet mix-ups, and rare die varieties that only a handful of collectors in the world even knew existed. And that's where this story turns from history to mystery. A man from Ohio, sorting through his late father's coin jars, found one penny that looked different. The color was off, a deeper, almost bronze tone. The edges seemed slightly thicker. At first, he thought it was just worn from age. But when he weighed it, he realized something was very wrong. The scale read 3.11 grams, the exact weight of a pre-1964 bronze penny, not a 1965 copper-clad one. His hands started shaking. Could this be one of the ultra-rare transitional era pennies? Collectors were stunned when the coin was authenticated. Somehow, in the midst of that chaotic minting period, a small batch of 1965 Lincoln cents had been struck on leftover bronze planchets from 1964, planchets that should have been melted down. Each one was a ghost from another year, a silent survivor of the mint's most secretive era. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin went to auction. Experts whispered that it might fetch a few $1,000s. But as the bids rolled in, something incredible happened. It soared past expectations, hitting the 6-figure range, and finally selling for just shy of $1 million. Dealers were left speechless. Collectors rushed to recheck their own 1965 pennies. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know, how could they find one too? Not all 1965 no-mint Mark Lincoln pennies are valuable. You have to know exactly what to look for. Because while millions of these were struck, only a handful were born from those rare bronze blanks. Look closely at the color first. Regular 1965 pennies are copper-plated zinc or copper-clad, giving them a bright orange tone that dulls to brown over time. The rare transitional errors, though, have a richer, darker hue, more of a deep chocolate brown or even reddish bronze. Next, the weight. This detail alone can mean the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. A regular 1965 penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. But the rare bronze transitional errors weigh 3.1 grams, just like their 1964 counterparts. It's a small difference, but it changes everything. And then there's the sound test, a simple trick collectors swear by. When you drop a genuine bronze penny onto a hard surface, it rings with a higher, bell-like tone, while a copper-plated zinc coin sounds dull and flat. One man described hearing that ringing note for the first time and feeling his heart skip a beat. That sound, he said, was worth $1 million. But the real treasure hunt begins with your own change. Imagine digging through an old coffee can of pennies and finding that darker one. Heavier, richer, older than the rest. Maybe it's been there for decades, passed down unknowingly from pocket to pocket. Maybe it's waiting for you to notice it. Collectors across America have turned this quiet obsession into a full-blown movement. Coin shops are buzzing, metal detectors are back in fashion, and families are going through their old jars like detectives on a case. The thrill isn't just in the value. It's in the mystery, the story, the possibility that something extraordinary is hiding in plain sight. But here's a secret even many collectors don't know. Some of these $1 million 1965 pennies show faint traces of a doubled die on the obverse, a ghostly doubling on the letters, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty." These double dies are so subtle that most people overlook them entirely. But if you spot one under magnification, you could be holding a true numismatic legend. Dealers are paying outrageous sums for verified examples, and coin graders have started flagging even near matches for potential study. The mint never admitted how many transitional errors escaped, if any were even supposed to. Some experts believe only a few doesn't exist. Others think there may be hundreds still out there, quietly waiting in drawers, jars, and piggy banks across the country. But what's even crazier is how this one penny changed the way collectors think about value. It proved that rarity doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes, the coins we overlook, the ones with no mint mark, no silver shine, no flashy design, turn out to be the most valuable of all. One retired factory worker told a story that still makes collectors smile. He'd kept a small jar of pennies in his garage since the 1970s. When he finally went through them, there it was, a dark, heavy 1965 Lincoln cent. He sent it for grading, and when the results came back, he cried. His simple penny, the one he'd nearly tossed into a Coinstar machine, was worth over $600,000. He paid off his mortgage, took his wife on the vacation they'd always dreamed of, and still keeps the grading certificate framed on his wall. "This penny gave us our life back," he said. It's moments like that, pure chance, pure luck, pure history, that fuel the fascination with coins like the 1965 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny. Each one carries a story, a mystery, and a spark of hope that something ordinary could be extraordinary. Tonight, when you empty your pockets or count your change, take a closer look. Hold each penny to the light. Feel its weight. Listen to its ring. Because you never know, one of them might not just be another cent. But when it resurfaced decades later, it was worth over $1.1 million. A simple 1980 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, hiding in plain sight, turned ordinary pocket change into a life-changing discovery. Most people passed it by without a second thought. But one man looked closer, and what he saw changed his life forever. It started with a faint shine, a tiny difference in color under the light. He thought, that looks a little off. He dropped it into his pocket and forgot about it for months. Until one day, scrolling through a coin forum, he read about a mysterious 1980 penny with no mint mark, a coin so rare that only a handful are believed to exist. His heart started racing. He pulled out the coin, wiped off the dust, and there it was, the unmistakable absence of a mint mark. No D, no S, nothing. just a smooth surface below the date. For most people, that little blank space means nothing. But for collectors, it's the difference between a penny and a fortune. Experts believe a small batch of 1980 Lincoln cents left the Philadelphia Mint under strange circumstances. Some say it was a forgotten test strike. Others whisper it was an accidental release of coins meant for internal use. Whatever the truth, these no-mint mark pennies carry a mystery that has baffled numismatists for years. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When this coin hit the auction floor, bidders went wild. Dealers from across the country locked eyes, phones buzzed, paddles shot up in seconds. The room went silent as the final bid came in, $1.1 million. The owner, still in shock, later admitted he almost spent that penny on a cup of coffee. The answer lies in its imperfection. The missing mint mark on a 1980 Lincoln cent shouldn't exist. All pennies from that year were supposed to bear a mint mark if struck anywhere but Philadelphia. But this one breaks the rules. And in the world of coin collecting, rule breakers often rewrite history. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to recheck their own stock. Thousands of 1980 pennies were pulled out of drawers, jars, and old piggy banks across America. But only a few matched the exact die characteristics. The crisp strike, the original copper tone, the subtle details that make it authentic. And here's where things get even more fascinating. A few of these no-mint mark 1980 pennies show doubling on the word Liberty or a faint die crack near Lincoln's shoulder, small flaws that send their value skyrocketing. One penny with a visible die chip near the date sold privately for over 6 figures. It's what separates ordinary coins from million-dollar miracles. When examined under magnification, the surface of these coins reveals unique flow lines, microscopic evidence of how the die struck them at slightly different pressures. These details prove authenticity. Counterfeiters can't replicate that texture. That's why professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC treat these coins like gold. And yet, even experts have made mistakes. Some early collectors dismissed the 1980 no-mint mark penny as a common circulation piece. A few were spent, lost forever in vending machines and grocery store tills. That means every surviving coin becomes even more valuable with time. Imagine this. You dump out an old coffee can full of change, and one coin looks just a little different. No mint mark. Slightly thicker rim. A deeper reddish tone. Your first instinct might be to toss it aside. Don't. That exact penny could change your life. Dealers are now offering thousands of dollars just for verified examples in average condition. But those in pristine, uncirculated condition, the kind that still gleams under a flashlight, are commanding near million-dollar offers. One collector called it the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents. And here's the twist most people don't know. The 1980 no-mint mark penny is part of a hidden pattern, a string of rare Lincoln errors spanning the late 1970s and early 1980s. The mint was experimenting with new die polishing techniques, which sometimes erased the mint marks unintentionally. That's right. A cleaning process meant to perfect the dies accidentally created one of the rarest coins in circulation. Collectors often joke that the mint's mistake became their miracle. First, flip your penny over. Look at the date, 1980. Now, check below the year. If there's no D or S, look closer. Make sure it's not just worn down. Use a magnifier. The area should be completely smooth, as if the mint mark never existed. Then, check the coin's condition. Sharp details on Lincoln's hair and jacket mean it hasn't been heavily circulated, which boosts its value tremendously. Next, pay attention to the coin's color. A genuine copper penny from 1980 should have a rich, warm tone, not dull or washed out. If your coin weighs around 3.11 grams and feels solid, you could be holding one of the rarest modern pennies in existence. But be cautious. Plenty of counterfeits are floating around. If you suspect yours might be real, never clean it, polish it, or scratch the surface. That alone could destroy its value. Instead, send it to a trusted grading service for authentication. And remember, these coins aren't just about money. They're about mystery, history, and the incredible chance of finding treasure in everyday life. Because somewhere out there, in an old dresser drawer or a forgotten coin jar, another 1980 no-mint mark penny is waiting to be discovered. Waiting for someone with a keen eye, maybe even you, to notice it.so before you spend your change or roll up your pennies for the bank. take one last look. That plain-looking coin could be worth more than your car, your house, even your retirement fund. A small, ordinary-looking 1977 Lincoln 1-cent coin. No mint mark, dull in color, and worn by decades of circulation. But when one man looked closer, what he discovered shocked the entire coin world. That plain little penny, the kind you'd easily hand over for a pack of gum, turned out to be worth up to $1.2 million. It started like this. A retired machinist in Illinois was sorting through an old jar of coins his father had kept since the late 1970s. The coins had sat untouched for nearly 40 years. Most were just loose change, nothing special, until his magnifying glass caught something strange on one particular penny. It didn't have a mint mark below the date. That wasn't unusual for Philadelphia coins, but the shine, the strike, and the texture were unlike anything he'd seen. At first, he thought it might be a proof coin that somehow escaped the mint. But what he didn't realize at the time was that this 1977 no mint mark penny was hiding a secret, a minting anomaly so rare that even experts didn't believe it existed until it was verified. When he sent the coin for grading, the graders at first thought it was an ordinary copper penny. But once they examined the details, the doubling on Lincoln's face, the unusually strong strike, and the high-quality finish, they knew something historic had surfaced. The coin had the fingerprints of a production error that should never have made it into circulation. And here's where it gets incredible. Only a handful of these 1977 no mint mark Lincoln pennies have ever been confirmed in top condition, and one was rumored to have sold privately for more than $1 million. Collectors were stunned. Dealers began calling each other, trying to trace where these coins came from. Some suspected a mint insider might have released them. Others believed it was a pure accident, a die test that somehow slipped into general use. But what happened next stunned everyone. Once the story spread online, thousands of people began digging through their coin jars, their dresser drawers, even the change in their cars. They weren't looking for silver. They weren't looking for gold. They were looking for copper. Copper worth more than a mansion. The 1977 penny, in ordinary condition, is just a cent. But if you find one struck with the rare high-relief die or made with experimental planchet variations, you're holding a life-changing coin. Some experts claim a few of these coins were struck on leftover planchets intended for proof sets or foreign currency, giving them an unusual metallic tone and weight. This tiny detail, the weight and metal composition, is what separates a 1-cent coin from one worth over $1 million. And most people miss it completely. They'll see a coin, think, just another penny, and toss it back. But the lucky few who look closer, who check the texture, the rim, the sharpness of Lincoln's face, they're the ones who find treasure where others see nothing. Now here's the real mystery. Philadelphia mint coins usually don't carry a mint mark, so how do you tell if yours is the rare one? The secret lies in the surface. These coins have a distinct, almost proof-like mirror finish with extremely sharp details, especially around the beard and the lettering of Liberty. Under magnification, you might even notice light dye doubling on the date or the word trust. Collectors who've handled these rare 1977 no mint mark pennies describe them as having an electric appearance, brighter, sharper, more alive than an ordinary strike. And if you find one in near-perfect condition, graded MS-67 or higher, you're looking at a potential 7-figure treasure. But it doesn't stop there. Some of these coins also show subtle die errors, tiny raised lines, slight off-centering, or unusual rim thickness. These imperfections are what make them so valuable, because they prove that your coin wasn't mass-produced like the rest. It's a 1 in a billion survivor. Imagine this. You're emptying out an old coffee tin of coins one night. You're tired, just going through the motions, when suddenly one penny catches your eye. Something about it looks off. Maybe it's the luster, maybe it's the feel. You take a closer look, and there it is. No mint mark, crisp details, and a weight that feels slightly different. Your heart starts racing. You could be holding $1 million coin. Collectors across the country have stories just like this. A random day, a lucky find, and a moment that changed everything. One man found his 1977 penny inside an old desk drawer while helping his grandfather move. He had no idea that single coin would fund his retirement. The truth is, the 1977 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just rare. It represents a moment in U.S. history when minting technology was shifting, when small errors and experiments slipped through unnoticed. Each one is a window into the past, a reminder that even the smallest details can hold unimaginable value. Dealers are paying close attention to this date now. Auction houses have reported private offers reaching into six figures for uncirculated examples, and experts believe it's only a matter of time before another one crosses the $1 million mark publicly. When that happens, this coin's legend will explode again. And here's what you need to do if you think you've got one. First, don't clean it. Cleaning destroys the natural patina and instantly lowers value. Handle it gently by the edges, and use a jeweler's loupe or magnifier to inspect the details. Look for sharp features, proof-like shine, and strong definition on Lincoln's hair and beard. If the coin looks unusually crisp and shows no mint mark, it's worth getting graded. Send it to a professional grading company like PCGS or NGC. Their experts can confirm whether it's the rare high-relief or experimental strike variety. If it comes back with a high grade, congratulations, you could be sitting on one of the most valuable modern-era pennies ever discovered. The next time you grab a handful of change, don't ignore those old brown pennies. Every scratch, every detail, every missing mint mark tells a story. Somewhere out there, another ordinary-looking 1977 penny is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it will join a very small club of collectors who turn pocket change into a fortune, because this isn't just a penny. It's a piece of American history, a symbol of luck, patience, and discovery. The kind of find that reminds us all that even the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. But it turned out to be worth over $1.3 million. You heard that right. A 2011 D Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent penny, the kind most of us have jingling in our pockets, has sent shockwaves through the coin world. And what makes it so fascinating is that it looks almost identical to the one sitting in your kitchen drawer right now. It all began when a man in Colorado was counting change for gas money. He noticed something odd about one of his pennies. The color, the shine, even the way it reflected light seemed off. He almost didn't think twice. But something, maybe instinct, made him keep it aside. Weeks later, that same penny would become one of the most talked about coins in American numismatic history. Collectors were stunned. Dealers couldn't believe it. This simple Lincoln penny, stamped with a D for Denver, had a minting secret no one saw coming. The story really starts at the Denver Mint back in 2011, a year most collectors thought was uneventful for pennies. Millions of coins were struck, bagged, and sent into circulation. But during production, a rare and mysterious minting flaw occurred. It's believed that a few planchets, the blank metal discs used to make coins, were made from experimental copper alloy. The result? A handful of 2011 D Lincoln pennies with an unexpected metal composition, slightly off color, and strikingly bright. One of those coins slipped through the cracks and ended up in circulation. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin was analyzed under a microscope, experts found microscopic doubling on the obverse, Lincoln's portrait. Tiny details in the letters Liberty and the date 2011 appeared doubled, as if the design had been struck twice. It wasn't just a mechanical slip. It was an incredibly rare mint error that made this coin one in a million, literally. Now here's where it gets unbelievable. At an online auction, that single penny fetched more than $1.3 million. You could almost feel the disbelief ripple through the room as the final bid came in. 1 cent turned into a small fortune, and that wasn't the only shock. After that sale, collectors all across the country began checking their change, their old jars, even under couch cushions. People started finding 2011 D pennies that looked strange. Some had lighter tones. Others had faint doubling around Lincoln's ear or the lettering. Every discovery sparked more questions and more excitement. Could there be more million-dollar pennies out there? The coin that started it all remains a mystery to this day. Some experts think it was struck on a leftover planchet mint for a different coin series, possibly a foreign alloy used for testing. Others believe it was part of a small batch accidentally released during a quality check. Whatever the case, its existence has rewritten what collectors thought they knew about modern Lincoln cents. But this story isn't just about a coin. It's about timing, curiosity, and a little bit of luck. Imagine holding something in your hand that's been spent, forgotten, passed from store to store, only to realize it's worth more than a house. That's what happened with this penny. And it gets better. Another collector in Texas found a similar 2011 D penny while sorting through rolls from the bank. His coin showed subtle die cracks running through Lincoln's shoulder, a sign of a worn die used beyond its normal lifespan. Experts confirmed it was another rare Denver strike. Though not quite as valuable as the first, it still sold for a staggering 6 figures. Dealers started whispering that there might be an entire micro-run of experimental strikes. Maybe only a handful exist. Some even speculate they were made as test strikes for quality control and somehow escaped the mint. Whatever the truth, these coins are now considered modern legends. But what makes the 2011 D penny so different from the thousands of others minted that year? The answer is in the details most people never notice. The color, slightly reddish gold compared to standard zinc-coated pennies. The weight, marginally heavier by fractions of a gram. And most importantly, the doubling on the obverse that gives Lincoln's features a ghost-like shadow. These clues separate a million-dollar treasure from an ordinary coin. Here's the wild part. The Denver Mint produced over 5 billion pennies that year. Billions. And yet, only a tiny handful have this strange combination of composition, doubling, and condition. That's like finding one perfect snowflake in a mountain blizzard. Think about that. You might have spent one of these without realizing it. You might have handed it to a cashier or dropped it into a tip jar. Every time someone pays with a penny, there's a microscopic chance it could be worth $1 million. Now, let's pause for a second. Imagine checking your change tonight and spotting a 2011 D penny. You turn it under a light. Maybe it looks a little shinier. Maybe the color seems off. You look closer, and suddenly you see faint doubling on Lincoln's face. Your heart skips. That's how it starts. That quiet moment when a coin goes from ordinary to extraordinary. But here's the secret most people miss. Value isn't just about rarity. It's about condition. That first $1 million penny was nearly flawless. Mint state perfection, untouched by circulation. Even small imperfections can reduce value dramatically. So if you think you've found one, handle it carefully. Never rub it. Never clean it. Place it in a soft holder and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. Collectors are still searching for more examples. Some swear there are 5 or 6 in existence. Others think it's just 2. Either way, each discovery reignites the hunt, and every new coin adds another piece to the puzzle of this mysterious Denver Mint era. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And that's why this story has captured the imagination of so many Americans. It's proof that treasure doesn't always hide in a mountain or a shipwreck. Sometimes, it jingles in your pocket. Now here's how you can identify this exact coin. Look for a 2011 penny with a D mint mark, located just below the date. Under magnification, check for doubling in the word Liberty, Lincoln's Eye, or the numbers in the date. Compare the color. Genuine errors often have a richer, slightly coppery tone than the usual dull zinc finish. And if your coin feels just a little heavier than normal, around 3.1 grams instead of 2.5, that's your signal to stop everything and get it examined. Most people will overlook these tiny differences. They'll spin them, roll them, forget them. But not you. Because now you know the secret that most collectors only dream of discovering. Somewhere out there, another one of these pennies is waiting. Maybe it's in your change jar. Maybe it's in your car's cup holder. Maybe it's already in your hand.